Hi lovelies! I'm going to show you how to make this beach Tangram tumbler today. This is Crystal with Emerson Aurora Design. Let's get started. Now I am using double-sided adhesive tape that I purchased on Amazon, and I cut out a template that I made online. It's just using um, a repeating pattern, and I'm going to apply it to my 20-ounce tumbler here. Now here is the thing. I do not recommend this tumbler adhesive at all. That's why I'm not even going to list it in the description box below. But it's my first time using this, and I just don't like the way that it lays on the tumbler, and it's kind of hard to weed. But I am going to go ahead and use it anyway because I do like the adhesive part of it. I will have a new tumbler tutorial coming up in the next few weeks using some double-sided adhesive that I'm really happy with. But anyway, I am just lining up my template here on my tumbler, and I'm going to tape it on with masking tape. Now in this video it shows that I did just spray paint the top and bottom of this tumbler, but I do go back and spray paint the whole tumbler white before laying this double-sided adhesive down, because the adhesive is actually clear and I want my glitters to have the most bang for their buck. I'm just showing you how I'm laying it out here. And this is why I don't like this adhesive. It has paper backing on the front and the back, and it's really hard to kind of get it separated from the backing and allow that adhesive to lay down nicely. Like I said, I've used others that I would recommend, but just not this one. Anyway, it is on my tumbler now, and I'm just going through and trimming off the top edge and the bottom edge of my tumbler tape here using my craft knife. I had a little issue with the overlap of my design, and I'm going to show you how I remedy that. And I kind of took a different direction with the design I was going for, and it ended up turning out terrific. Sometimes I just don't have an idea completely formed in my head before I start a tumbler. I just kind of have a loose interpretation of what I'd like to do, and I go with it from there and see how it takes shape. That's how I do art. Everyone has their own way of doing things. I know it's hard to see this on here because it is white paper on a white base, but some of this paper cut through to, I cut it on a paper setting on my Cricut. So I'm just piecing some pieces here together so that it will fill my tumbler completely. And the overhang, like I said, I will show you what I'm going to do with that here in a bit. So I did cut out the same shapes in this pretty vinyl that I have from the Glitter Craze. I'll leave their link in the description box below. And I'm using a few glitters from their store. That match the vinyl. The vinyl has like seashells and some pretty ocean colors. So I'm going for an ocean theme. And honestly, I did not really map out where I wanted to put my glitters. I wanted to be in an like a traditional ocean or beach tumbler with the gold for the sand more towards the bottom, and then lighter blues fading into darker blues for the variant of the ocean, if that makes sense. But like I said, this is also filling in a tangram. So I just kind of am playing it by ear, going with what I feel looks visually nice. So I'm somewhat happy with how this double-sided sticky paper holds the glitter. It laid down fairly nicely. This is a messy type of tumbler to do. If you haven't done the double-sided sticky tumblers yet, just beware, they are very messy. At least maybe that's just me because I'm a messy crafter. So I'm just peeling up that top layer of the paper that was cut to expose the glitter, or I'm sorry, the sticky, and I'm laying my glitter down. So I'm just trying to decide which parts I want to remove next. Like I said, I didn't really plan this out, but I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. I've used double-sided adhesive, sticky sheets, whatever you want to call them, for other tumblers in the past, and I'm starting to get more confident with them. The cutting process can be challenging, but I really do like the way that the glitter holds to the sticky sheet, and like the sky's the limit with these type of tumblers. They're so much fun. I found that the fine glitters work the best for these because they really hold tight on that sheet. You can use chunky glitters, but I have a lot of chunky mix glitters. They have like chunky and fine glitters mixed together, and it seems like just the kind of fine glitters will stick and then the larger glitters kind of fall off. So I would recommend using like a medium or fine grit glitter for these type of tumblers. And you can see I'm leaving a section there. You may not be able to see it yet, but when I turn the tumbler, it's where the seam overhangs. I was not happy with how that worked out. I couldn't peel that up nicely. This was, like I said, I made my own template, and my measurements probably weren't perfect, but I always will find a way to make this work, and you'll see what I'm going to do with that here in just a little bit. Now I'm at the top of the tumbler. I know I have it flipped upside down, but I want to go with the darker blues at the top to mimic the deeper ocean, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm using a chip brush to get the excess glitters brushed off. It works the best, I think. You can use any glitters for this. The beach theme, I just matched them to my vinyl and went with kind of the ocean colors that I like to use. I'm using glitters from Glitter Craze. I have a ton of glitters from there, but I use glitters from all over. This is Sparkly Meemaw, actually, this pretty turquoise. Just rubbing that in with my finger, burnishing those glitters down so that they will stay nicely. I am using white as my background. I like using white because I feel like the colors will pop more. Some glitters may be more translucent than others. Like my gold is an ultra fine, so I will have to go back in and do a second coat on my gold. And then later when I do my white sections, you'll see that I have to do some touch-ups with that and one of the light blues. When you're doing these tangrams, you can mark each section with a Sharpie or a pen so that you can keep track of what colors you're using if you like. This blue is a little more translucent than I thought it was going to be when I laid it down on the white base, so I probably will have to go in with a second coat on this also. When you do second coats with this, obviously there's no more sticky, so you'd have to just take a fine paintbrush, and you can use Mod Podge or Tack It, whatever adhesive, glitter glue, whatever adhesive that you like to use, and just paint that directly on. So here's that seam that I was working on that I don't like. So I'm taking extra pieces of adhesive and I'm just kind of filling in the holes. I know you can't really see that there are areas there that don't have sticky to them, but that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking off any extra that I had from my my cutout, and I'm just putting the sticky on basically. So there's not going to be a shape. It's just basically like laying down double-sided tape here. And like I said, it's hard to see here, but essentially what I'm going to do is fill this in as best I can so that there's adhesive through the whole little section there. And I'm going to do an ombre, a beach ombre there. So that's why I want my adhesive to be even. So that's just the extra tape. And you can't even tell when I put my glitters on this section that I was using kind of piecemeal. So now I'm doing my ombre. I'm starting at the top because I want to go with the darkest colors first. I'm using my dark blue. I'll go into a darker turquoise. I'm just holding my tumbler at a 45-degree angle and letting those glitters kind of cascade down the tumbler like I would for a classic ombre. A lighter turquoise for the shallow water. I'm going to use a little white, and I'm going to finish it off with the sandy gold. I'm glad that I decided to do this with that seam to cover that up so that it didn't look crazy. And it really added a nice area where I could apply a nice wording or decal. I think that's going to look nice. And you can't even see that I piecemealed that adhesive. So I'm going to kind of go in and take that glitter and just kind of ombre it on so that it's on there a little bit better coverage. And this glitter that I didn't save to put into my bottles is going to make a really pretty beach glitter mix for later. So I'm going to keep on going on with my pattern here. It's starting to come together. I'm really starting to like how it looks. This green is so pretty, but it is very translucent, so I will have to add another layer of glitter on that later when this is done. And that's fine. I want my tumbler to be really bright and pretty. So I have all my little, the points of the stars all finished. And I'm going to decide where I'm going to place my vinyl. Actually, I think I have a little bit more. Yeah, I have a little more triangles at the top. I'm sorry that this is a longer video, but I wanted to make sure that I showed all the steps that went into this tumbler. This was a more in-depth tumbler, but it was so much fun to make it. I loved taking the time to put all these glitters on here in the different patterns. So I'm trying to decide where I want to put my little decals or vinyls that I cut out. Now, of course, the vinyl is adhesive vinyl, but it's going to stick to that double-sided tape, so that's fine. I'm just matching it up. I really love the way it looks with the glitters that I chose. And I'm just going to kind of turn them and face them different directions so that, you know, they don't all look matchy-matchy, if that makes sense. These kind of tumblers are fun to do when I'm just sitting here. I'll just put on my favorite Netflix show and watch it while I'm working on it. But I tell you guys, I was covered in glitter when I was done with this. This really is a messy. As much as I tried to keep my glitter contained, I was really covered in glitter when I was done with this part of the tumbler. So I'm going to fill in the rest of those spots that are the little hexagons, I think they are. I don't know. I'm not very good at geometry, guys. But anyway, I'm going to go in. And I'm kind of doing the opposite of the triangles. So I'm doing my gold at the top here. And I like the way that's looking. And my blue at the bottom. I just like the opposite kind of the gold and the blue at the top and the bottom. Like I said, I didn't plan it out, but I like the way it turned out. And once that glitter is smushed down on the adhesive, it does hold pretty well. I didn't have a whole lot of fallout from that glitter at all. But I still will go in once I'm finished doing this and then my second coat of glitter. I will go in with Rust-Oleum 2 times clear sealant and spray my glitters because I really don't want them to move. They shouldn't, and I don't believe that they do, but I just, out of habit and just to be safe, I mean, you do so much work on these tumblers, it's better to just make sure that that glitter is going to hold tight in place. I really like this, like I said, this green, but it is very translucent. So once I kind of brush it off, you can see too much of the white, so I will go in and fix that. So I'm going to spray her down with some matte clear, and then I will show you a little bit of adding the second layer of glitter. I'm going to do Mod Podge. Like I said, you can use glitter glue, you can use Mod Podge, you can use Tack It. I'm just taking a flat brush here. I'm just staying in the lines and adding some extra glitter there to make it, that green especially, fill in those spots. And you can see already that that's much brighter. And I know that this is an extra step and You may not want to do this. It's completely up to you. I just wanted more coverage on that green, and I believe towards the top there you can kind of see, which would actually, yeah, right there, there were a little bit of gaps that were caused from the way my adhesive was cut. So I'm going to fill that in too. I am going to add pinstriping to this tumbler at a later time, and you'll see that in this video. Doing the second coat of glitter does go a lot quicker because you already have your glitter laid down. So just be real careful with your paintbrush. Make sure that you're staying in the lines so that you don't have any mistakes. But this goes a lot faster than using Mod Podge and just glittering your tumbler the old-fashioned Tangram way without the double-sided adhesive. I'm starting from the outer edges and kind of brushing my way inward so that I don't have any Mod Podge go where I don't want it to. I'm trying to keep my lines nice and crisp. So now I'm going to do my bottom. I am going to paint my Mod Podge around the bottom and do the bottom in this pretty gold so that it looks like sand. So careful around your glittered areas, and then you can use a bigger brush if you want for the bottom to get a little more coverage. I'm going up on this because I'm going to fill in a little bit there, and I'm using the gold anyway. So I am going to do a second coat on that ombre also, the beach ombre part. I want that to be more vivid. So I finished the second coat on the pattern. Now I'm going to do my second coat on the ombre. That glitter tends to soak up the Mod Podge, so I'm using a little bit extra Mod Podge here. And I'm just going along the lines like I was with the pattern. And I'm going to do the ombre exactly like I did it the first time. Just to give it a little extra oomph of color. Pop of color. Pop of glitter, whatever you want to call it. I love thinking outside of the box with these tanagrams, but you can really do these in any style that you want. I love the beach tumblers. I'm so ready for summer, so that's what inspired me to make this tumbler. Who doesn't need a vacation, guys? So I'm just kind of smoothing that Mod Podge out so that there's not any distinct long lines, and then I'm going to go in and do my ombre just like I did before. A little different angle for you to see. Since this is the second coat of glitter, I am holding the cup more horizontal, but you can do it at a 45-degree angle like the first time if you want. The ombre has already been finished. I'm just kind of adding extra color, and that's why I'm not holding it at a 45-degree angle. But do it however you like to do your ombres. There she is, so pretty. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spray seal this again before I move on to my next step to lock those in place. And I am going to put it on my turner. I do 2 coats of epoxy. Here's a few days later. I've had 2 coats of epoxy on my tumbler. I've sanded my tumbler down, and that's why it's not very shiny. And I jumped ahead to do my pinstripes. Now I'm doing my pinstripes in this pretty holographic kind of blue to green shift vinyl. I just purchased holographic vinyl on Amazon. I'll leave a link to that in the box below, the pack that I purchased if you'd like to see. But I cut these on my Cricut, and I believe they're at 0.06 or 0.08. I can't really remember. I didn't write it down. You can really just use your judgment. I wanted it to be wide enough to cover those spots, the lines, nicely. So I had a nice straight edge. I'm just starting at the top, and the way the pattern is, I'm just kind of spiraling it down, following those triangles from the top to the bottom of the tumbler. Here where it kind of lines up to the beach ombre, I'm going to cut it off there so it isn't going to cover. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife, just use a sharp blade and trim that off. And you can use that other piece for your other side. I take my sharp blade and I literally just kind of press it down firmly to the tumbler. It's okay if you get a little scratch in your tumbler at this point because it will fill in with another layer of epoxy later. So it just cuts that vinyl nicely without having to have any issues and it not pulling and stretching and kind of thinning that vinyl out if you were to pull on it. So I'm doing all these diagonal lines first because I want them to be consistent. And this part was actually really fun. I had a lot of fun putting my pinstripes on. So when you cut on your cutting machine, you will have the pinstripes are like long rectangles. And then there's obviously there's big cuts in between each one. I'm saving the ones that are in between for my horizontal lines that go across the bottom and the top of the bottoms of my triangle, if that makes sense. You'll see here in a minute. But see how I'm taking off every other line. The ones in between these that I cut are a little thinner. So just be careful. You want to make sure you're getting all the same size vinyl when you're doing this step. I'm going to use those other lines, the other pinstripes for my horizontal. I hope this is making sense. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just doing all the diagonals first, and then I will go in and do the other lines. You can use different colors for your pinstriping if you want. You don't have to use all the same, but I like the consistency. I wanted it to be all the same here, especially since this vinyl has a color shift to it. I just thought it looked so pretty. I'm just taking my X-Acto knife there and I'm just going to press it into the vinyl on the straight edge, leaving just a little bit of a gap towards the top of the tumbler where the stainless steel will kind of show so that I can have a good seal with my epoxy. And I'll do that. I cut it at the bottom also, obviously. So now I'm using those little bit thinner stripes and I'm going to put those on the horizontal. I'm just laying them directly over the other vinyl. It isn't going to make a difference. There may be a little bit of a bump there, but they're going to be consistent. So I don't really care. And you just want to press them down nicely. Make sure they're all even, no overlaps, no overhang or whatever. And it's really starting to look pretty. I love this tumbler. So there's all my pinstripes. I'm very happy with this. Very, very happy. I think it's beautiful. I did go in and I cut a cute saying to put on that beach, the beach part. I applied about 2 layers of epoxy over this to get a nice smooth finish. Use as many layers of epoxy that you would need. And I made this little saying, it's beach o'clock somewhere. I thought that was fitting. I could see me sipping my lemonade on the beach with this tumbler. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something new today. Thank you for hanging in for my long tutorial. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Drop a comment in the comment box below. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Happy crafting, you guys, and I hope you have fun making your own Tangram tumbler.